Welcome, writers. Today I have Kim Reynolds with me. Welcome, Kim. So I
Hello.
am so happy to have Kim here with us because I know her to be perhaps one of the most well-read individuals that I know. She's so thoughtful in her approach with reading and writing. And so we've got a great conversation here, but let me introduce the writers to you, Kim. So Kim is passionate about fiction and storytelling and has been all of her life. Book Giddy isn't just her Instagram username, it's her way of being in the world. Kim has been a newspaper editor, ghostwriter, and blogger. Her fiction and essays have appeared in newspapers and anthologies, and she has studied creativity coaching with Dr. Eric Meisel and is an Author Accelerator certified fiction book coach. Working with someone as they uncover their best writing and storytelling skills is a privilege she never takes lightly. And in the years I have known Kim, I mean, I can't attest to the newspaper and the ghostwriter. I didn't know you in those years, but all the other stuff I have absolutely seen Kim excel in everything. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
And the reason why I thought Kim might be able to help us out here today, writers, is she has this lovely resource that is called the Writer's Compass. And it's just a beautiful approach to being a writer in the world. It's not necessarily specific to any type of writer or any type of genre or anything like that. It's more perhaps about the writing life. And so I invited Kim here to tell us a little bit about this compass. So could you give us maybe like a quick overview of what the Writer's Compass is?
Well, the 4 points of the writer's compass are the notebook, scenes, the emotional ending, and writing craft. But the reason I wanted to create the writer's compass was because, there's that Somerset Maugham quote where he says there's 3 rules for writing a novel and nobody knows what they are. And I thought, I sort of interpret that as like you have to go on your own journey, you have to figure it out yourself. And I think that's true. But I think, today what we would say is there's 100 rules for writing your novel, and everybody and their brother is going to tell you what they are, because it's just, I think anyone who's starting today to write a novel for the first time, but any novel, but especially for someone starting for the first time, it can be so overwhelming. There's so many softwares, there's so many books, there's so many, there's book coaches, there's so many things that can just make you think, can freeze you and not know where to start. So I wanted to create something that was just right back to the essentials, something that Jane Austen could have used. I mean, she didn't have she wrote Pride and Prejudice like 100 years before the typewriter even existed, right? So I wanted something that was just the essential things that you'd have to take on your journey, your compass, that when you head out that writing door, the 4 essential things that you need to get you going. And these are the things I came up with.
I love that because a compass kind of gives us a general direction of where we're trying to go without like in 300 yards turn.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not a map, it's not, it's just, you have to orient yourself. And yeah, and it can be used by people who consider themselves plotters, or people who are pantsers. It doesn't matter. It's not about the process. Yeah, that's individual for every writer, but these are just sort of the essentials that'll keep you on your path, I
I
believe.
love that. I love that. Okay, so you mentioned we've got the four points, and those are lining up with our northeast, southwest, and
That's
any SW. Super clever. So would you mind sharing maybe just like
yeah.
a little bit more like should we start with north? Is that
Yes. And I
okay?
think because yes, so North is your novel notebook. And I think that this notebook will be your North. It is going to be your everything when you're writing your novel. We can't keep everything in our heads. It's, it's plot lines, ideas, title ideas, all these things. So if you have a notebook for your novel, you can use it for so many things. It can be where you journal how you felt about your writing that day. I mean, Steinbeck has actually a couple published books that are the journals of him writing East of Eden and Grapes of Wrath. So he was even using this compass point himself. So it's a place where you can brainstorm titles. You can work on your scenes. It's a place that's not your manuscript, where you're keeping all your ideas and thoughts about your writing. So that's why I consider it your North. It's what, like, for my novel I'm working on, I've got one with all cute little 70s stickers on it, because my novel takes place in 1976. So, but any ideas I have, I carry it around. I have it in my bag when I go out. I have it at my nightstand. It's just a place to work on backstory, just everything you can think of, all in one spot.
Yep. And I happen to be someone who loves handwriting, especially when I'm in a more of a brainstorming kind of space. But I suppose there are some writers who maybe prefer to be more digital. So, I mean, could
Yes,
the notebook be like an
absolutely.
app or whatever that we keep?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes, because
Okay.
I'm not pushing any one method on you. I
Yep.
personally too like handwriting. I think there's something that really connects you to your thoughts, and it's just more, well, I guess it's not more portable because you can have all these apps on your phones and on tablets that you can bring. So yeah, if you wanted to do something like Evernote or whatever all the other ones are,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, there's so many. But yeah, no, absolutely. This can be digital or analog, whatever works for that writer. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So
It's
then
just
we're
that one
moving
spot.
moving east. So,
Sure. Yeah.
so what,
East is
what,
the emotional ending. It was a little bit of a stretch trying to make it fit the E because but but I made it work for. So the emotional ending is, where is your novel heading? Like when you're writing, one of the basic things I think need to know is what the point of your story is. What message are you trying to send? Not a moral, but just the story. I think it's from Jenny Nash's book. She says every book at its heart is an argument for something, a belief, a way of life, a vision for the future. And I think that's what I think is important for a writer to figure out in their notebook before they start writing, just to have a general idea. It's not the final scene. I'm not saying you have to know the final scene, but the final emotional takeaway for the writer. And I think that helps you while you're writing your scenes be consistent with what you're doing, because otherwise, especially if you're a pantser, if you don't have that kind of idea of where you're heading with your story, you can end up in a lot of tangents you
yeah.
know
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because if I'm writing a romance, I know that I want the reader to feel like happy and have that kind of feeling. But if I'm writing maybe a thriller, maybe I want the reader to have this adrenaline rush or
yes,
something at my
exactly,
ending.
yeah.
And
So
that,
you want to kind of understand that before you get going.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I happen to be someone who needs to know the end before
Yeah,
I can
and that's fine.
begin.
And that's fine, because this doesn't. That's what you have your north for. You have your notebook.
Yeah.
Write your ending in there. That's what I'm saying. It's for pantsers or
Yeah.
plotters. It's whatever works. It's as robust as you want. Like, I think every writer is ends up doing the same thing. Every writer has to create those scenes, whether you like to create them before you get to them, or if you like to make them up as you get to that spot. Your notebook can still be very useful to you for fleshing them out and asking yourself questions, and doing that. So it doesn't matter when in the process you do it, you're ultimately going to write those scenes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so well said. Plotters and pantsers are doing the same thing. We're just doing them in different order.
Exactly, because that's the only way you're going to write the book, is just write those words down. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. So where do we go with S?
Well, let's go with scenes, because I
Okay.
think, yeah, I know, yeah. So I'm going down. Um, and well, they're the building blocks of the whole book, right? I mean, you need scenes are the show in the show don't tell,
Mhm.
right? So you want to keep track of those scenes. So I think the notebook, as much as I love it, isn't as great for this, because if you write a list, you can't really move them around. So I like for the scene, I think you should keep a scene list where you're writing what happens in the scene, why it happens, and then what happens because of that. So you want to have all your scenes relating one to the other. You don't want it just a haphazard story with a lot of different things happening. So to keep track of them, you can go old school with note cards and post-it notes on your wall and move them around as you want to. You can use one of those softwares like Scrivener or Plotter. Again, it's whatever works for that writer, but somewhere where you can keep a list of all the scenes, what's happening, so you can go back and reference it. It lets you see the forest and the trees. You
Yep.
can go back and say, okay, this happened, and then I have this happen. Okay, well, that doesn't really flow, so I need another scene to fit in there. It just helps you put the puzzle pieces together of your novel, because it's
Yep.
all told in scenes.
Yep. And just to make sure, because we might have some newer writers here with us, what are we considering a scene?
What are we considering a scene? Well, it's the moment, it's when something's happening
Yeah.
and it's unfolding for the reader as it's happening. It's not being told to them. It's not saying, yesterday I went to the store and bought some shoes. It's, I see the person, I see the character walk in the store, and I see what they see. I see the story unfold. I see
Yeah.
them see the shoes and their feelings about seeing those shoes, and it's all happening in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And since you and I are both Author Accelerator certified coaches, we are also well familiar with the need for change to be happening.
Well,
And
yes,
so
sure, yes, yes.
definitely writers don't include any scenes that, you know, don't
Yes, well, if
don't
you look
change
at your
anything.
scene
Yeah.
list later and you could take
Yep.
that scene out and nothing would change in your story, then it probably doesn't belong in there, as fun as the scene was, because that'll happen, especially to pantsers, right?
Yeah.
You'll go off on a tangent, and that can be a great thing. It can open up a whole new idea and a whole new thread for the story. But sometimes it's just something that was fun to write, but really is distracting from the main story you're telling. So then you can remove that scene. And that's when you have all your scene lists, you can see that too. You can go, oh, well, that didn't really matter. And, it's just a way of keeping track of everything.
Yeah. And
Yes,
probably
every scene by the beginning of the scene to the end of the scene is almost like a mini arc, the same as the
mm,
novel. You want them coming in with some intention and some sort of change by the end of the scene.
yeah. 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 And I think like each of the genres too probably have their like extras. Like I know if you're writing some kind of fantasy, it's like, but I love this fight scene,
Yeah,
but it's like,
yes,
but
exactly.
does it actually matter to
Yes, exactly.
like
Yeah.
this side fight happening over on the other
Yeah.
side of the world that doesn't matter, but it was so much fun to write.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay. And that leaves us with W.
Yes, writing craft. Now, this one, people may think, well, how does this fit in this as a necessity for writing a novel? I think, okay, so the type of book I'm talking about here is craft books. So not books like Stephen King's book or Anne Lamont's book that are full of inspiration. Those are great. I'm not saying don't read those, but that's not what I'm thinking is essential. And I'm also not talking about books like Save the Cat, um, or any of the other structure books,
Yep.
because I don't think it's necessary for a writer to get all in their head while they're writing the first draft, saying like, oh, it's page 3 and I was supposed to have the inciting incident 5 paragraphs ago. Like, I think that just messes up. The first draft is telling yourself the story, right? So you want to get it down. You don't want to get all caught up in worrying about beats and things like that. Some writers may want to, and they can. I'm not saying you can't. I just don't think it's as important as just moving that story forward with your scenes and all that stuff. But writing craft books, that sounds boring to say books on grammar, but there's a lot of fun books on grammar out there for those of you who think that it's totally dry. Or there's one I really love, The Elements of Eloquence. It's a fun book. I think the more we read these things and not sit there and apply it to our draft, just soak it in, build up your inner knowledge. It's like a musician, you're a musician, right? You want to do scales, you want to understand what a triad is, and you want to understand the fundamentals of music to really enjoy, to really compose it. So I think it's important to take 15 minutes. I like an hour a day because I love these books, but even 15 minutes a day reading on a book about grammar, and just, read about commas and stuff like that in some fun book, and then move on. Don't then go panic about commas in your draft. Just take it all in. And I think every day reading some of our craft improves your writing. I think it just does.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that there are some very brilliant people whose ideas can be, just fantastic, but because they can't express them in a way that other people will be able to understand, those ideas kind of get ignored. So I think, communicating effectively with other people is a big part of being a writer. You have to
Yeah,
get your
and
ideas
actually,
across.
and I focus there on grammar books. I wanted to also include books about creating character, books about creating scenes. There's a lot of
Mhm.
really good books on. I think do I have it here? No. Yes, I do. Like this, I was reading this just yesterday, Make a Scene.
Mhm.
And like it's all about scene, but I'm not going to sit down and read this, scene intentions, and then sit down with my novel and do that. But I'm going to just be soaking it all in. I'm going to be understanding scenes at a deeper level, and again, so it's not just inspirational, like, oh, write every day and do not all the fun stuff. It's the fundamental stuff. I think it's important to read those books.
Yeah, the building blocks.
Yeah, the building blocks, exactly.
Very cool. Okay, well, writers, this Writer's Compass tool is super fun, and Kim there's actually more to the compass, which we won't go into here in the interest of time, but I definitely want to make sure that people can find you and connect with you. Where do you hang out these days?
Well, I'm Book Giddy on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but not very much. And my website is kimreynolds.ca.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And writers, we will have links to all of that in the show notes, including a link where you can grab Kim's Writer's Compass, because it's pretty extensive. It's like 7-8 pages long, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great resource. And as Kim has demonstrated here, it's applicable to all types of writers, all experience levels. Even if this is a novel event that we're doing here for this interview, but it would work if you're writing a memoir or a
Oh, absolutely.
nonfiction
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of, so definitely check it out. And Kim, I just want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing this resource
Thank
with
you
us.
so much for having me. I
It
really,
was a fabulous conversation. And writers, definitely check out Kim on Instagram as well, because she usually is posting book recommendations, which are great. She has great book recommendations. So, all right. Thank you so much, Kim.
thank you so much.
All right, writers, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.